Hey everyone, this is Vantage Points, a series about seeking connection during the COVID-19 pandemic. We take time to check in with our friends in and around the coffee supply chain and talk through all the unique challenges we are facing as an industry. Today we are talking with Evan Howe of Passenger Coffee Roasters about buying responsibly, the value of partnerships, and how to navigate business in a fair and equitable way.
I sort of conceptualize my own goal right now as find responsible ways to buy coffee. Like essentially like that is, and also do what I can to like make sure that we continue to sell coffee as effectively as possible to support that aim. I would say that video chatting or like anything along these lines is like not my area of strength. So it was highly valuable to take a peek at that.
Nice. Well,
That's your best right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Luckily go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was gonna say, luckily we've done a bunch of these together now because I feel the same way. I'm like, I've done one Zoom call before this and
Right. Exactly. I feel like there's a generation of people for whom like continuity into this season has been like very smooth and painless. And then there are a few others, myself included, where it's like, wait, what? This is the only way to connect with human beings now? Not good.
Yeah.
Evan, are you guys open at all at Passenger right now?
So our smaller cafe, which is located in the front of our roastery, is still open just for like very limited walk-up carry-out service. So my colleague Tyler is pretty much the only one who's working there currently. And we've kind of tried to keep that. I mean, there's an entrance into the cafe and then there's a back entrance into the roastery. So we've tried to keep those two zones like very sealed from each other. So yeah, we are still kind of in the mornings and I think it's just Monday through Friday now. But yeah, limited. It's like very much, I would say mostly like furloughed passenger employees and people in the neighborhood who are the most common people who are walking down to get a coffee. But that's it. We closed King Street, the kind of main cafe, I don't know, a couple weeks ago now, I think. That was definitely like the quicker kind of decision, but this one being a space that was a little easier to try to be super focused and controlled in terms of how we approach service there. We're still trying to keep it open as long as it seems responsible.
Right. Yeah.
How about for you guys?
So we have 7 shops at Ceremony, and currently they're all still open, like a to-go only situation that we're consistently like progressing through and like making stricter and safer. And we've had to lay off most of the baristas at this point. So it's like a very small crew.
Same.
Yeah. And I would say like our roastery in Annapolis is the busiest location. Sometimes I'm still like, is it worth it? Like some of the locations we're not breaking even. So it's like, is it worth it? But trying to be there for each community.
Yeah, exactly.
So
it has been, I mean, it's been really good to just sort of, I would say, I mean, like so many, like probably most roasting companies now, it's like the focus is so online now. But I think for us being kind of from day one, a very like Lancaster kind of connected company, I think even for the 5 or 6 regulars that are still feeling comfortable coming down, it's nice to feel like in a very small way, we're still kind of connected to the neighborhood. But yeah, man, it's so hard to kind of gauge what's appropriate and what's responsible.
Yes. Yeah. Like you want to support, even I do that. I'm like, I want to support, but then when I go out to like support a small restaurant, I'm like, am I just part of the problem now? Or am I like, I'm like, I don't know.
I know. I feel like again and again, I'm like, what is the appropriate way to be supportive right now,
Absolutely. It's so impressive how every single company has showed up for their community and also flipping their entire business models overnight. I think people outside of maybe the restaurant or hospitality industry maybe underestimate the intense intentionality behind every movement we take within our spaces, and to change the fact that, oh, now I have to go this way. Even that very simple detail, oh, now I go this way.
Exactly.
It's totally mind-boggling and
so
such
hard.
a huge hiccup and so difficult. But it's just showcasing the resiliency of the spirit behind the hospitality industry, and that it's not like it's a purpose-driven business. Like, we're here for farmers, or we're here for our local communities, or like the heart behind it is very specific that surpasses what's on the plate, right?
Absolutely.
So that's why people are flipping fast.
Yeah, I know, man. I was so excited to see that you guys are planning. I don't know, I saw something in the notes for like the idea of the last episode or the last few episodes, where I think, if I'm remembering correctly, you're looking to sort of branch out and talk to some other entrepreneurs and people in the service industry that are maybe not directly coffee focused. I saw that you're looking to talk to Lane, which is so cool. Like, that's we have driven down a few times to Baltimore just to pick up wine. When you said that,
I was like, are they driving down to Baltimore?
Oh, for sure.
For wine.
It is like, you know, I'm like, well, especially these days, it's a pretty easy drive.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't think there's any problem with us driving to the curb and grabbing some wine and driving home. And also we need wine.
Yeah. So. And it's the best wine. And they're the best people. No. I got a pack of wine yesterday. It was like, amazing. It's happening.
Yeah. They are such inspiring people. I think it's really cool. If you're planning to speak with her, that's awesome.
Yeah. And these are the people that I think we all admire, and it makes sense to us. Like, we're a part of, we call ourselves the coffee industry, but we're a part of also a restaurant industry that affects food, that affects other supply chains. And these people are going to be drastically affected when like your customers don't come in.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, tea companies and chocolate and sugar, like those will all be drastically affected by the coffee industry.
Yeah.
So.
Nico, I'm curious, like, this was already very much like the pandemic was in relatively full swing by the time you were headed home. Is that true?
Yeah, very much so. Within Uganda, there weren't any recorded cases. And it wasn't because of what you might think, like, oh, they're not testing or this or that. But there were a lot of kind of imported, obviously from usually Dubai. That seemed to be the case, right like the week before I left. So it ramped up very quickly, as this thing does.
Yeah.
The week before, I was asked, hey, do you want to leave? And I also went through that, like, realm of denial of, hey, I'm young, hey, I'm this. And then the conversational piece about social responsibility came into play. And it was like, like, I not only have a role to play in that regard, and we as a company do, so we had to check all the boxes of a COVID response for our people. But on the other side, if the country gets shut down, as it was 6 hours after I left, we have product that is of our farmers that potentially I couldn't even get samples out for. Right. So like so late one night, we decided, hey, you're going to pack up your apartment and you're going to leave tomorrow. So the next morning, I just took as much coffee as I could in my suitcases and brought it in that way. And I'm so thankful I did. So thankful that people are smarter than me.
Oh my goodness. Well, I was just thinking, like, for you personally, like, with the fact that, like, it's already, I think, like, it can be very sort of challenging, and some time is required just to make the transition from that life and spending time in Africa and then coming home, and that sort of inevitable sort of personal navigation that's required to make that jump anytime. And was just sort of thinking that it must must be especially like complicated for you
Yeah.
to sort of like navigate that.
Well,
I can't even imagine.
I think honestly, and this, I felt really selfish and shitty that this was my initial response. I was like, I'm going home, and one, I have so much more work to do here.
Yeah.
And two, when I go, I can't even go to any of Lane's restaurants. Like, that was my first response. Like, I can't even enjoy the community that
Right.
I've been missing so much.
Right.
And is it worth it? Like,
yeah,
to
I
go
totally
home
get that.
if I can't even like go to ceremony, see Ash,
Yeah.
have an espresso, see
Right.
my family.
Right.
Like, I had a nephew that was born while I was away that I have never met before. But it's, once again, like, those people have shown up for us. Like, they're figuring out how to supply to people's needs and their wants, and they'll say, oh, it's an emergency, I'll put it on your doorstep.
Right.
Like,
exactly.
the transition has been way easier, and I cannot imagine thinking about something like this in another time.
Yeah.
When there was no internet, when people couldn't order their groceries online. It's like,
Right.
it's a mind-boggling. So I'm just really grateful that
I
I
get
can
that.
export and mill coffee and do quality assurance and head up a quality team by my iPhone on the other side of the world. That's
Yeah.
insane.
It's pretty insane.
Yeah.
That's a
very
nice
cool.
perspective. That's great.
I think that's how we came up with this idea originally. Like, I was checking in with Nika when she got back. And so we're both green buyers. So I'm sure you're in touch with all of your importers and your
Right.
exporters. And I was hearing different scenarios of how people are dealing with it everywhere. Like, Nicaragua at the time had nothing, shut down.
Right.
In Uganda, no one could move. People couldn't work in the mills. In most Central American countries and Colombia, they're allowed to go to the mills, but it's like a stripped down staff. So it's like, hearing all of that and figuring out how to navigate the contracts, is I was like, oh, we need to have like a bigger conversation to connect everyone.
For sure.
Yeah.
No, I think it's such an inspired idea. And also, I mean, I'm just looking forward to learn a lot from different people's perspectives, because I feel like even, and I'm sure if we continued to share notes, Ashley, like there would be a lot of like, there'd be a lot of things that we're navigating in similar ways. And there also would probably be things that, whether it's differences between particular importers that we're currently working with, or differences between our companies, or differences between, you know, any number of things, there's probably some things that are extremely like aligned, and probably also some things that would be like super different that I'd be like, whoa, I'm, you know, that's so amazing that you have that contact, because I have a big problem with that. Or I've been really insulated from that problem for whatever reason. Like, I have such sympathy for like the challenges of that or whatever. So it always blows my mind how like at different stops along the supply chain, like the basic like steps of what we're trying to do is like fairly similar, but the details and specifics of like how people navigate it can be so different, which I find fascinating, and like feel like I have a lot of blind spots in terms of like how different people are feeling right now.
There's so much power when you know, create space at the table for everyone involved. And there's so much power when we're able to share those stories and learn from them. And I hope that this is like a really easy way to do that very quickly.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that's like not anything I would have thought about for an exporter or importer. And that's just baffling. And it's not, you know, it's not surprising that we don't know those things. We're in our own little areas of the world and we're living our lives, but this is just a way to kind of insert ourselves in a really, hopefully bite-sized way to just say, hey, here's the challenge.
Here are some tasty
Listen.
bites.
Yeah.
I mean, not to give away anything. Even in like we had a preliminary call with like our nonprofit, like food security episode people, just to like give them some information on what this is and what's happening. And some of the sound bites in that were things that I had not heard anywhere or never even considered. So I was like, this is why we're doing this, and everything you just said, like all those blind spots and perspectives that we miss. And even in my own buying supply chain, there's so much difference just based on like what I had in inventory going into this,
for sure,
that I like have to handle so much so differently.
For sure.
I don't know if you'd be willing to talk about any of your challenges, and you don't have to name anything specifically, but if you want to talk about some of your specific challenges, like, that you're facing, especially sourcing in the supply chain.
No, absolutely. I mean, I feel like we have specific challenges, and then we also have, I feel like, I think in some ways we're insulated in particular ways just because we freeze everything.
Yes.
So I think that like in some ways that's really valuable for us right now. It's like comforting right now. On the other hand, it's like that is also how we kind of plan the whole year of sort of buying, and so that also makes some things like more challenging. So the kind of thing is like, well, if our production is like dramatically down until wholesale kind of reopens, and we don't know exactly when we're going to get back to whatever the new normal is, which we also, of course, don't know. Then all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, for obvious reasons, the rest of like sort of last year's higher volume coffees that we have in the freezer are potentially going to last longer than we expected, right? Which is great, because if we've done everything the way we think we did, the coffee should be sound indefinitely. But the problem is, like, because we base all of our financing on the freezer for all of our contracts, all of a sudden it's like, well, on one hand, I don't mind bringing in another full container of coffee from El Salvador when I need to look at those contracts probably in the next month or so. But all of a sudden now I need to like talk to importers and say, can you give me different financing terms? Because I would normally plan to go through that coffee in a 12-month period and negotiate the contracts accordingly, right? But if that's not necessarily going to be the case, the fork in the road is, well, do we talk to the producer or the exporter about the possibility of contracting lower volumes, which doesn't feel good? Or do we talk to the importer about the possibility of like slightly different financing terms, which also doesn't feel great, because, you know, I think the goal here is, at least for us, and I think for like-minded people in the industry, is to try to say, okay, there's a lot of pain as a result of this situation. I mean, emotional pain, but also just financial pain and kind of business risk pain. And so what is an equitable and fair and sort of honest and clear-eyed way to try to like share that pain, right? Like, most importantly, to not pass that all the way back to the producer, and especially like the most vulnerable producers. But what's the way to say, okay, this is the moment where whatever we thought the strength of our partnerships was in terms of producers, in terms of exporters, in terms of importers, this is the moment where the strength of that and the sort of, hopefully, the accountability and the trust is going to be tested in a very real way, in terms of trying to say, can we have honest conversations about like how we share the risk, how we share the loss, and how we hopefully all stay in business and keep doing this work in a way that feels viable and feels sort of consistent with our values. And I think the devil's in the details, of course, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like what balancing those variables means for me varies so dramatically depending on the importer, depending on the producer. Like, I'm going to feel very differently about like my Ethiopian container and thinking about, okay, what does this mean for a very, very small holder farmer who's a member of Nano Chala Co-op, and what this means for Catamaduga Union, what this means for Ocido, what this means for whoever the people that are involved in that supply chain. That's going to be very different compared to like a conversation that I have with Carlos Batres of Monte Carlos Estate, because a lot of those intermediaries are removed, but also he is someone who within, compared to other producers, has a lot more resources and enjoys a different type of privilege, certainly.
Yeah.
And so I think the conversation has to be different. But on the other hand, as we all know, like, it's always going to be nuanced, because it's not just Carlos. Like, it's making sure that we're sort of maintaining our end of the bargain with him, because if he doesn't have another outlet for the coffees that he's counting on us to buy, it's maybe not so much just him, but it's also the like entire community of people that he's employing, which is also different than Catamaduga. So yeah, I just feel like trying to like be sensitive to the ways that like these contexts vary radically, and try to figure out like, okay, what's the least kind of the lesser of evils in all of these kind of decisions that we have to make, is the challenge for sure. And I think like trying to sort of to not only balance that, but like, not for me as a green buyer, I think I have to guard against just thinking about the supply chain. Like, I have to make sure that I'm reminding myself that passengers, baristas, our sort of customers and guests here in Lancaster, our wholesale partners are also part of the supply chain. I think it's very easy for me to just think back in the other direction and not think about the other steps here and the other ways that like all of those people need to be factored into the equation, and like, and that needs to inform the way I negotiate as well.
And that's so unique about somebody in your Ashley's position, where you're like, a lot of us are in coffee because we love community and hospitality and that interconnectedness, right? And we are being so challenged to take care of the people that we see in front of us in our cafes that are like family. People are laying off their families, right? And trying to figure out, how do I take care of you standing in front of me? How do I walk you through how to apply for unemployment, or how do I just show up for you in this moment? And then you're then thinking about somebody completely on the other side of the world that you visited during the season, thinking like, I committed something to you and you're a part of this thing that we've created. It's a lot of responsibility, and I think you highlighted that the devil is in the details, and that's why it's so important that this isn't just a transaction, and that it is relationship, because crisis arises and things happen, and one thing that happens along that supply chain ripples in both directions. So it has to be an open conversation. It has to be something done in trust, so that you can just come and say, yo, this is hard, we need help. Or it just won't work. Like, this doesn't work unless we're being bold in what we need.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, what you say really resonates. I think it's absolutely like the goal and the challenge. And I think for me, it's like sometimes, I mean, like you used the word relationship, which I think is like something that's been like important and really meaningful, kind of like as a way of conceptualizing like how the supply chain might look, obviously more or less since the beginning of the specialty coffee movement. I think for me in these moments, like, I mean, yes, I am very, like, I'm trying to sort of approach our sourcing in a way that like ticks the boxes of hopefully what a mutually beneficial relationship looks like. But honestly, like for me, I have even more modest goals that are really hard to meet, which is just like, how can this be like a fair partnership? Not even a relationship, but like, a partnership that I am like standing by and like not abandoning or not failing to hold up my side of this when things get tough. Like that's a hard enough goal to aspire to for me. In terms of just trying for it to really mean something and trying to like find ways to like pursue it in a real way kind of over
Absolutely.
So
and
like
that's such a good point, because like we want to look at it as a relationship and something like we're taking care of one another, but it's also fair business.
Exactly.
Like when you look at that person as with respect, as a good business person, it becomes that partnership.
For sure.
And I think sometimes with certain segments of this industry, we discredit that little element. And I think that that's such a valid point that would help us move forward a little bit better.
I mean, I think my goal is just like, or the way I think about it, and it's in no way to like cast shade on anyone for whom relationship is the appropriate term or the best way of capturing the way they're approaching the work. I think for me, it's almost like if you really care, partnership is maybe in some ways more respectful of like potentially inherent vulnerabilities and like differences in power, in the sense that like, and also I want to guard against the assumption that a producer wants a relationship with me.
Right.
I mean, producers want to sell their coffee for fair prices and they want buyers to come back every year. I mean, everywhere I go, you know, I feel like I'll be doing an interview with a producer, you know, and it's very hard for me to like check my sort of the barista inside of me that wants to just sort of preach the gospel of this producer and preach the gospel of specialty coffee and ask questions like, what do you want the people that are going to be enjoying your coffee to know about you? And the producer's like, what?
I'm just that person trying to sell this coffee.
Like, I have a product, please buy it.
Like the producer's like, I want them to know my coffee's the shit and I want them to pay a lot for it, you know? So
I got bills to pay and I worked hard to make this. Buy it.
Exactly. Thanks.
I think the term partnership like invokes a level of trust and transparency that I'm super grateful for. I feel like a lot of the conversations I've had, I haven't had to go into it being like, okay, I can only tell them so much. Like I've literally been like, here are all my cards, here are what I'm capable of, tell me what you need. And in many scenarios, most scenarios actually, we end up finding like, oh, okay, like I can do better than they thought. Like they were coming in the worst.
For sure.
And then it's like, it's a very easy, just like, oh, okay, perfect. Like I needed you to still be able to meet this minimum and I'm able to like justify it and do it. And it makes sense. And I think, cause I'm grateful for that level of being able to be transparent and like trusting each other to like have that conversation.
100%.
Yeah.
But it's a crazy time. It's like how to completely change my buying, but also not really. But like you were saying, like you have to rethink like, every level of it and how you're going to do it and who you're affecting. But I'm really glad we talked to you too about the freezing aspect, because I think that's definitely a unique thing that no one else we're going to talk to is going to be able to like speak to. Part of me was like, oh damn, I need a walk-in freezer now.
You do.
I need a huge walk-in freezer in Uganda somehow. I'll just line half the warehouse.
Right. Exactly. I would highly recommend it.
That kind of leads us into like that creativity leads us into the question of just how are you and Passenger, and you also represent so many other businesses within that family of businesses, and maybe you just want to kind of walk through that a little bit, but how are you as a family of businesses thriving at this time? I'm sure they all have their unique challenges, and that's hard to navigate, but you spoke a bit about yours within your role. But definitely as a family of businesses, how are you thriving during this time?
Sure. So I'll start by just like very, very quick, like run around of like how the sort of family tree of businesses kind of works for us. The two people kind of behind all of the above are Crystal Weaver and
Yeah.
Kyle Sollenberger. They're very visionary and amazing people. Crystal was like an early kind of entrepreneurial rock star here in Lancaster, opening Prince Street Cafe a number of years ago. I want to say like 12 to 14 years ago. I'm relatively new to the family, so some of my info may be slightly inaccurate, but something along that period of time. And the way things are currently, there's sort of an umbrella company called Commons, which includes sort of administrative roles that serve all of the companies. So Kyle and Crystal are sort of the COO and CEO of Commons, and then kind of that trickles, their leadership trickles to kind of all of the other companies. So Passenger is one of the companies under the Commons umbrella. And then we also have a sister roasting company called Necessary, which is also kind of part of that family. And then we have sort of like an industrial kitchen that serves a lot of eating establishments in the general area called Commissary, and a catering company called Merrymaker. What else am I forgetting? They have the 2 Prince Street cafes, which are sort of like simple kind of food and coffee service, one located in Lancaster and one located in York, Pennsylvania. And there's also a location on the campus of Franklin Marshall called Blue Line, which is also a cafe that serves the student population at that college. So I think those are the main entities.
Yeah.
And so there's kind of a leadership team drawn from a variety of people at all the companies that meets as a group, usually at least quarterly. That definitely reports to Kyle and Crystal for kind of all the admin kind of stuff. And then we have people that cover finance and human resources for all of the above that are Commons employees. In terms of how all of the above, how we're thriving in the current moment, to some extent, it's a little, it's a tricky thing to answer in the sense that things are so fragmented right now. So even though Lancaster is a small city and I know more or less kind of what's happening at HQ and the people that are likely to be there right now, I haven't seen many of them in person for like 2 weeks. And so just like so many of us right now, everything has shifted to texts and emails and video chats and sort of more distant communication. And I think it's it's very easy to be focused on the day-to-day like crisis management or like whatever needs to happen just to kind of move forward and do the best we can. And so I'm actually like sad to say it's probably been a while since I've actually like been like, hey Crystal, how are you? You know, like things like that. I think it's very remiss that without having the opportunity to check in face to face like we normally would, it's sometimes easy, I think, to like for that to slip through the cracks when everyone's working really hard to try to like move forward in a good way. But that's a very roundabout way of saying that. I mean, some simple facts that I think are encouraging, even as sort of they're happening a little bit remote from each other. Crystal and Kyle did start a community food hub, which is sort of operating out of our headquarters on Marion Street. So it's kind of a combination of making baking supplies and groceries that were sort of already more or less in stock for some of the operations that are sort of functioning at lower volumes currently, sort of available to people in the community, but then also reaching out to other restaurants, purveyors, people who are making food and drink in town here that maybe have less of an organized outlet, or for whom their businesses are completely shuttered in the current moment. So they just sort of facilitated a way to say, okay, here's a community pantry that people can kind of order multiple times a week and kind of have local pickup. And I mean, from my perspective, like I say, it's a little more detached right now, but it seemed to happen overnight. I mean, it was kind of like I got an email and then it was like, cool, we're operating. And so I immediately placed an order just because I wanted to see Kyle and Crystal. So I did that, and yeah, they're really amazing at starting things and figuring out the logistics of trying to be really respectful of, trying to keep people safe, but also just like make it as sort of safe but also accessible as possible for people to buy local ingredients and to kind of support other companies that we love here in town, but also like make it feasible for people to get great ingredients actually cheaper and probably safer even than going to Whole Foods or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's been really cool to kind of see that take place. And then, I mean, other ways that we're thriving, I mean, speaking about Passenger, obviously I think for a lot of roasting companies right now, wholesale is down, but in many cases, online retail is up, right? So that's the big opportunity right now is people that are at home that need coffee and are maybe looking online more now to sort of support their roasting companies, to support their restaurants, support the companies that they value in their like day-to-day normal life. So that's been a really amazing response. And I think we have tried as a team to like pivot in a few ways to try to like raise our game in terms of like ways of supporting people online. So, our very skeletal production team, which is currently just 3 people, has been crushing it and doing an amazing job. And then we also have two of our like most long-term employees, Tyler Goodlane and Carl Bakey, who have been sort of being amazing rock stars at sort of answering people's questions on our website. So we have like an Ask a Barista feature where we tried to encourage people to engage in that way by sort of making that the route by which they could get free shipping for orders. So as from what I've heard, the response there has been like really amazing. And those guys have done an incredible job at supporting our customers and guests in that venue. I think it's given us an opportunity to like learn a lot about what people do value about our brand, but also like so many ways that we stand to grow and improve in terms of trying to say, oh, there's nothing like almost all of your business shifting online, to clarify ways that you could be better at e-commerce and ways that you could be better at sort of thinking about hospitality creatively in an online digital kind of context. So yeah, nothing but ways that we see kind of opportunities for improvement. But I do think that those have been like initial kind of home run moments for our team.
And so I was talking to Carl the other day, and he was mentioning, he was working online through customer service. I was like, what does that mean to you? Like, how does that look to you? Is it like an email back and forth with wholesale clients? He's like, no, go to the website. And I did. And when you do so, you see a cute little picture of one of these lovely people from Passenger, and they're online waiting to just talk to you. He's like, I'm drafting out this answer of how to brew this. And I was like, Carl, this is the sweetest. Like, it was so Passenger of you, like, to do. Awesome. I was like, I love, because if you've ever been to the Passenger on King Street or now Plum Street, the intentionality and the hospitality is at top notch. And that was just a way to take that physical experience that you're used to having from Passenger and say, I come to you. I meet you where you need to be met. And I don't know, like, I really thought that was an earmark of like, y'all bringing up the game in a virtual experience. So I appreciated it.
I really appreciate that feedback. I think we're just, that is absolutely the goal. And we're just trying to, as a team, to figure out like how to pursue it better.
Yeah. So the other question that we're trying to ask everybody because this is such a diverse group of people in so many nooks and crannies of this industry. Honestly, how do we need to show up for someone like you in the supply chain? Like, you are figuring out how to show up for your community, how to show up for your coworkers or the people that you're managing, and then also your producing partners. How does this industry need to show up for someone in your boat or in your shoes?
It's such a lovely question, and I think that in some ways I have difficulty answering it because I feel so like I am in many, many ways insulated from the worst of this situation. I have been since the beginning. I continue to enjoy like so much support and privilege in this moment in so many ways. I look around and I see, I think the situation right now is, it's very, very hard for me to kind of like sort of acknowledging that, to think about like, what do I need? I think I just see like, if anything, I'm asking the question of like, how can I engage more effectively? How can I be more supportive? How can I sort of make more of an impact in a way that's, you know, authentic to me, not being like a super fluent digital communicator and, you know, like that not necessarily being my like number one comfort zone. I mean, I think in some ways, I mean, like, I think what you guys are creating with Vantage Points is like a huge gift to me and a huge gift to our industry and our supply chain, just in terms of making it possible to sort of facilitate sharing and conversation and dialogue about kind of like how people are doing, trying to clarify like what really are the problems, what really are the challenges, are we kind of on the same page in a sufficient enough way that like all of these good intentions are actually being put to like effective use, you know? So I think it's one thing to care, and it's another thing to like to actually know how to channel that, I think is a challenge right now for sure. So on one hand, I think I feel incredibly, I mean, I think the industry at large, there have been many, many examples of like organizations and individuals who either existed before this, or have sort of been created in response to this time, that are like making an incredibly like inspiring and valiant effort to support people and engage people, this being a great example. And so for me, I think if anything, the challenge to myself that I have for myself is like to make time to engage, to make time to like think and sort of try to respond, right, in a proactive way. So yeah, I think, I mean, unpacking that a little more, I mean, I think what I need, and this obviously supports that, is clarity regarding kind of what this situation is, to the extent that we can grasp it, and what the real, you know, potential consequences are of this situation, and kind of, and what, I mean, because to some extent, like when I think about it, it's like, well, I sort of conceptualize my own goal right now as find responsible ways to buy coffee. Like essentially, like that is, you know, and also do what I can to like make sure that we continue to sell coffee as effectively as possible to support that aim, right? But like, honestly, like that is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to honor our partnerships by buying, but I want to buy in a way that like hopefully supports us continuing to sustain our community, our company, our employees, right? So that's what I'm trying to do. I think all conversations and like all information that we can sort of clarify as an industry that like helps that goal for all of us, not just for me, not just for Passenger, but for companies that are like trying to do this in a thoughtful and responsible way right now is invaluable. And I think part of it is just talking. I think part of it is communicating and being willing to kind of like stay humble and open-minded and creative at a time where our sort of normal assumptions are kind of thrown up into the air.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, I hope something like this helps to do that. We try to be really honest and say, this is an emotional check-in, and we truly need you to be bold and honest about where you're at, so that we can respond to that, so that we can show up for you. And we hope that it helps someone in your position to navigate, like, I know that people right now are getting information that if any one of their pickers happens to have or show signs of COVID, then they can't sell their coffee. Like, those are conversations that we have to check in about, that like we didn't know until yesterday was a potential.
Right.
Like, it's just really interesting, these very unique country to country, company to company situations.
Right. I mean, if I could respond to your question with a question, I mean, I would be interested to know what all three of you, or whomever would like to respond, would sort of say, you know, speaking to me as someone who works for a roasting company. So like, I'd be interested, Nico, in like, what do you need from green buyers right now? Or how can green buyers sort of support you? I know you wear a lot of different hats, but like, thinking with your hat sort of representing producers in Uganda, like, what are ways that sort of like a green buyer can sort of be an asset and a support to you right now? You know, Ashley, like, to some extent, I think it'd be interesting to know, like, what does being collegial as green buyers mean right now? You know, like, what are ways that green buyers can support other green buyers? And then also, I mean, like, David, of course, I'm interested in like your perspective, like with your ground and griddled hat, and also as like a longtime member of the community who's occupied a lot of different roles. I mean, I'd certainly be interested in your response too. So what do you guys think?
Who wants to go? I can go first. Being collegial as green buyers is like, on a very basic level, is even this, like, having this conversation, being open and transparent with each other about like what we're dealing with and how you're surviving it. And then at the very, very minimum, buying coffee from my favorite companies, and then like promoting that. Like, I had to do an article for a magazine yesterday, and it was like, what's your favorite coffee to drink right now? So naturally I said a ceremony, but also I'm like, let's throw out some other companies here.
I know.
Because I think the biggest thing is that like we're all in this together. Like, we're like the highest tide rise type situation. So it's like, you don't want any of your fellow amazing companies to fall, because you all keep each other going, and the coffee community, especially specialty coffee community, growing and getting the word out there. And like you were saying, even like the community engagement has been like incredible and huge as far as like people brewing at home and getting that feedback. So for me, like, fellow coffee green buyers and colleagues, it's like just talking about the coffee and sharing feedback and promoting each other and like what each one is doing, like hearing what you guys did with your business and like changing it to be a community pantry is huge. Like, I think that's why I'm also have a biochem background. So I've worked in and out of the food industry and science. And every time I go back into science, the reason I miss the food industry is that camaraderie of like, hey, I recognize that you're doing something amazing that might be the same or a little bit different than what I'm doing, and I'm going to support that too and bring it all together. And like, you're not necessarily my competition, but you're another partner in this.
Exactly. I love it.
So
yeah, I feel like on the green buying front, I don't know if this will actually like manifest, but I wonder if this is going to be a banner year for like really creative consolidated containers.
Yeah, seriously. That's so fun. That's really interesting. It's an idea. Maybe we'll chat later.
Yeah, sounds good.
I'd love to be a part of that conversation. I'm also navigating that.
Yeah, seriously.
David, what about you?
It's a particular challenge for us because, we're in a food hall where
even though we're a very small company with just a little over a dozen people, it's very easy for our space to be filled with over 100 employees very quickly and on a regular basis. So really the places that have kept going in that space are people that already have like really strong like online presence with delivery or takeout or what have you. Um, and Evan, I think like what you guys have already been doing, like reaching out to us with referral codes so that we can like tell our guests like, hey, we can still provide you with like tea and coffee, and just to go help with our partners who have set this thing up for you so you can get a little discount and then it'll send some of the cash back to us, kind of helps us keep moving, because on the one hand being closed takes a lot of pressure off because we don't have the the health risk as much because we can kind of quarantine, but at the same time now we're pretty much totally dependent on, after we've been able to do as much paid time off as possible for everybody, we're as dependent as everybody else is on government loans, grants, and whatever else is available out there. So anything like what you guys have already done, and just keeping that communication open is invaluable.
That's good.
So just following up with a question. So Ground and Griddle is a wholesale client. So Evan Passenger basically has like a discount code and a kickback that goes to your wholesale clients, like a discount code that can go to your customers essentially at Ground and Griddled, and then you get like a percentage kickback. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah. So, and this was very much like dreamed up by Justin Smay. So I hope that I speak accurately to it. And if I don't, please correct me, David. But yeah, I think the basic idea was, all right, for sort of people that we work with that are maybe sort of either like on very restricted, like just carry out only, or trying to sort of encourage like retail sales. How can we figure out a way to, it's basically exactly as you described. So it's basically like, there's a code that would like allow them to kind of order online, and then we like send some back. So it also would like help people that don't really feel like they can like have, invest in a huge stock like on site.
Yeah.
Which we totally understand. I mean, like for all of us, like cash flow is like the big challenge right now, right? So the idea of just trying to say like, how can we sort of like find a way to sort of stay connected with our wholesale partners or other shops that we've been working with, and also like incorporate like their customers in sort of like online e-commerce on our site, but in a way that like hopefully is mutually beneficial for the shop and then also for Passenger.
That's an amazing program. Awesome.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Cool.
Very creative.
Yeah, it's huge.
Nice. Well, no, I'm really pleased to hear if there's been like some positive impact for Ground and Griddled, because I think this is, once again, it's like even in normal times, I often feel like, on one hand, it's great because we have great people who are going to be the primary point of contact for the shops that we work with, but it's still like very refreshing to be like, oh, cool. Like that thing that we discussed like very briefly as a team, and we're like, great, let's give it a try. It's nice if for some folks that's been a positive impact and has been something that's been appreciated.
Absolutely.
Cool. I love it.
So to kind of circle into how can people show up for someone like me or what I weirdly represent right now. It feels very weird to represent like 800 farmers and a staff of about 75 people. But I would say in acknowledgement that this is going to take a while to heal from. We have to consider we are a startup company that pairs innovation and farm services in a place that not many people know about within the specialty coffee industry, I feel. So we're fighting a lot, just like so many people are. But we exist to change lives of farmers. And we exist because we think that people can have better lives when we work together. And we were already launching a lot of new farm services this upcoming season. And to think about what if there's a collection, a mass, I don't know if outbreak is even the term, but how do we take care of those people? When we look at food security, thankfully, most people on the mountain have gardens, they have banana, they have matoke, they have ways to eat, but in the city spaces on the base of the mountain or our employees, like it's not only farmers, it's the people who take care of the farmers. Those are the things that I really think about as far as our little ecosystem within the coffee world, that this is going to take some time to heal from, and we don't know exactly what's going to be happening in those spaces until it happens. Thankfully, in Uganda, there aren't a ton of cases, and the president honestly shut down the country. When I say shut down the country, like 6 hours after I left, he did. People could not move.
Cutting it close, Nico.
Huh?
Cutting it close.
That's why I say I'm very thankful for the people that are smarter than me. I just wanted to stay and get shit done, because I get tunnel vision about the things that I want to accomplish. And they're like, no, that you will take care of us better. You will do a better service to us if you can get out on the other side in case things close down. And they were so right. So I'm very thankful for that. But yeah, so just an acknowledgement that your producers are going to be figuring out how this shakes out for a while. And the implications of, a green coffee buyer trying to figure out what can I take now, or just grace and an acknowledgement that in your head, you might have moved on, right? But the ramifications of something like this take much longer to heal in other places of the world. So that's really it, I think. Yeah.
That's a really great perspective. It makes a lot of sense.
Well, Evan, I don't want to take too much of your time. We're trying to keep it as bite-sized as possible, but is there anything else that you want to share or ask of, if you want us to relay and ask of anyone else within the system?
That's a great question. I think maybe what I'll do is review kind of the list that you'd sent me, and maybe if I take a few minutes, then maybe I can think of some questions that I could email over, and that'd be really great. But no, thank you so much. I will just sort of look forward to following along with the series, and kind of seeing where things lead. And thank you so much to all of you for all the effort that you've put in at such a short notice to kind of create this amazing resource for everyone.
Thank you, Evan. I really appreciate your time.
It's a really great conversation. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, for sure. Let me know if there's other ways that we can support, and cool.
Hopefully sometime soon we can all sit down for a coffee in person.
Yes, please. Yes. I would love that.
Or wine,
yeah. Yeah, exactly. All right, count me in. Thanks, guys. Take care. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.